let's just sew whatever. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are making the Mercury backpack. This backpack is a very good size backpack. I wouldn't say it's massive or huge, but it is a very nice size. It comes together so well. It is, I don't want to say overwhelmingly long, it's just longer than I'm used to making as of late. It will hold so much stuff. I added the trolley sleeve. This took minutes to make and add, something you could put on any bag really. Side pockets, it has these fun little cinched in sides because the bag comes together kind of like the Valora bag that I have the pattern for. I don't know, that was a weird way of saying it. It has this super cool front pocket here that again, you can adapt for any bag. It's just so cool. I love how hidden it is. It's got this front pocket here with this cute little flap. It's made just like a regular zipper pocket, and then you add this flap in it. It's really fun. I love the grab handles at the top on both sides, and then it's got a zipper pocket here. It has a zipper at the top. We added the laptop sleeve, we added slip pockets, and we added the water bottle sleeve on the inside. The back also has these really cool padded straps with the ladder buckles slash locking slides is what I call them on my website, but I have them available in 1.5 inch wide as well as 1 inch. But yeah, it came together really nicely. I added a rivet here and folded over so that it's less likely to just come loose. It adds a little bite to it, I guess. But yeah, it was super fun to make. Definitely go slow, take it a step at a time so that you aren't overwhelmed with how many pieces there are, etc. As far as interfacing, I used a woven interfacing on my cotton fabric. I used Sofuse Plus in place of Decaville Light, and I really like the structure. Decaville Light will definitely give you like a lot of body, but the Sofuse Plus makes it a little lighter weight and less expensive. And then I used a vinyl that will be on my website in a few months, weeks, whatever. And then I added foam in the straps and foam on the back panel, and then the foam on the bottom panel, as well as in the laptop sleeve. So I do have a video on cutting out this bag. It should have released before this one, but if you're watching this at another time, that video is available and will be linked down below. If you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe, and let's get to sewing. As directed in the pattern, we're gonna start off with the handles and straps and the connectors, etc. We are making the large size. Ben, can you get off the table? We are making the large size Mercury backpack. Super excited. This is such an incredible looking pattern. Looks like the perfect backpack, honestly, too. So I have started out with 4 total bobbins. I have 1 in, 2 on top, and then 1 on the side of my machine to keep on hand. So I'm gonna lay some 1/2 inch wide double-sided tape in the center of the contrast part of my handle. These are double-sided handles, which if you're using a domestic machine really help to keep the bulk down, and it just looks really fun too. The mini backpack, I will have a video for that. I just haven't made it yet, but I did cut it out. It only has 1 handle as opposed to the large size, which has 2. However, I think you could probably add 1 if you really wanted to the mini backpack. Okay, there we go. I'm trying to figure out this overhead filming situation. I always feel like something's in my way or I'm in its way versus the side view camera, but I realize that this is a lot easier to see what all's going on for the most part. I am using a 1mm thick vinyl that is backed with a microfiber, and it is available on my website starting in, I can't remember if it's November or December, but we have some that are going to be 0.6mm thick as well, and those are going to be super domestic friendly. So if you have a domestic machine and you've been wanting to try some new vinyls, this is definitely an option. Alright, and then I'm going to use a piece of like 1/4 inch wide or 1/8 inch wide double-sided tape along the center there to then stick these together. Alright, yeah, I feel like I'm out of the way over here. And you could also choose to not do a double-sided strap and just cut your piece to 4 inches by, I think it's 16 inches long, this handle is. I was watching a video from Knotted Threads on Instagram about using a seam roller to make sure that your tape, your double-sided tape, sticks in these situations, and I'm definitely gonna need to get a seam roller for sure now. I don't think I bought one. I don't think I have one sitting around, but I don't know for sure either. But I believe Hannah's Woodworking is going to be at So Magical Expo, so I hope to pick one up from there. Alright, and then you're just gonna center that in place. So there's the back side, there's the front. You just want to sew like 1/8 of an inch from the accent fabric. And I'm only going down the long sides of the strap because you're not going to see the short end. It's going to get caught down below. Love it. So there are those straps. I can set those aside and move on to the padded backpack straps. And this is a process that you could apply to literally any pattern, which I think is super cool. Love the idea of that. Oh, there's cat hair, thank you. So we're gonna put right sides together. I did not fuse my foam. I guess I still could, but I'm not super worried about it. We're gonna mark 2 inches up. Oh wait, I do need to place the foam, but 2 inches up from the bottom. And we're just going to sew around that part. So I'm going to clip these together. Now, if you really wanted to, you could sew all the way around and then flip it through, but I think this method is a little less time consuming, so it seems like it's going to be good. So we're going to sew around this curve. Only along those 2 inches. We're going to trim that down. That's going to give us a nice curve along that edge, and then make sure that you're not trimming past where your stitching is. And then we're going to use, I'm going to use a thicker pen. You want to mark 1 inch from the outer edge all the way along this piece onto your foam, especially if your foam is fused. That would definitely have been ideal. And then we're going to use double-sided tape to open up to secure our foam so that you don't see it through the layers. Because if you were to fold this over and then fold the other one over, you'd see your foam. So basically we're encasing the foam in between those layers. My iron was on, so I went ahead and fused my foam super quick. You want to make sure you're using steam when you're fusing foam together. We can unclip those layers. And lay this tape up to that 2 inch line. And this is right next to that 1 inch line, because the 1 inch line is where we are opening the seam to. We're folding this over the foam to meet that 1 inch line. So easy. And we want to repeat that on this side too, so that they're even. So I'm using this 1 inch wide ruler and my silver marking pen. Marking out that 1 inch line just along where we haven't sewn. My sister requested a leather diaper bag, and I definitely want to use these padded straps for that diaper bag. I just think it's a really clean look, really soft. Adds comfort, you know. Okay, so now we can flip this, poke this through. Make sure you're pressing along that seam so everything sits nice. Got a nice shaped curve. Oh, look at that. And then you just line these up. And then we're gonna sew around that U shape. And you can do 2 lines of stitching if you want. I think I probably will. I think that's gonna give it a nicer finished look. All right, we should be good. If you're wanting to use a vinyl for this step and you have a domestic, I would highly recommend doing like a double-sided strap situation like we did for the handle, because it's pretty bulky unless you're using a thinner weight vinyl. All right, I'm sorry if I'm in the way, but I really want this top stitching to look good. So I gotta get close. I am using my hand on the turn wheel of my machine to slow down along those curves. Very good. So let's go ahead and finish off this one, and then I'll do a time lapse of the other one. So we gotta grab our webbing connector. Pretty sure that's these smaller ones, because these are our long connectors, and then these are my side pieces. My side piece. All right, so mark a line on the short connector 2 inches in from one of these short edges. So I'm gonna repeat that on both connectors because I'm gonna need them both eventually anyway. And then we're gonna need our ladder lock piece. I do sell these on my website. I call them, I should say I have them called locking sliders. And what's great about this pattern is it does tell you like which side is which, in case you're unsure. All right, fold the short edge up to the line and stick it down with double-sided tape, like that. Definitely take your lighter to prevent any fraying. I am using seatbelt webbing, so it's not, I think it's nylon, it's not the polypropylene, which has a really bad tendency of fraying, at least in my experience. This should last a while. Okay. So now this is the back side. No. Yeah, this is the right side. The second bar has these ridges, and then in these ridges here are the back. So this is the front here. So we're gonna go with this face down and this piece wrong side up. We're gonna go around the top of the bar. Fold the raw end under so that it meets the other raw end. And I'll go ahead and use my double-sided tape for that too. So it's just through the center bar. And then this is the back side. Okay, yeah, I did do it right. All right, I'm gonna grab another piece of double-sided tape to stick on the back over the raw edges. One of these I can set aside for now, but I'm gonna come back to it while I do my other side. I guess pick which one you want right side up. This looks like a good back side. 2.5 inches up from the top is where we're gonna place this piece so that the ladder lock just barely overlaps. Basically, you've got your free end hanging off. And we're gonna do a box stitch. So I'm gonna start by sewing as close to the ladder lock hardware as I can. And right here is where it can get a little bit tricky. So as I'm sewing this way, I want to make sure I don't hurt the hardware. So I'm gonna lay a little piece of spare fabric down and just slowly remove myself from the hardware. There we go. Pull our threads through, tie off, and trim. And there is one of our backpack straps completed. I believe these get trimmed down at an angle before we attach them. Yes. So it's like a 3/8 inch angle, and you want to make sure that you're doing them opposite each other. So I guess we'll wait until we're there, but we can set this aside for now. So now we're gonna move on to the triangle connectors. This looks pretty fun. So we're gonna grab our longest pieces of webbing here. Set the medium-sized ones aside. We've got this. I don't need any hardware for this size. Well, other than what we already have. If your print is directional, take a second to figure out which way is which. But I'm gonna grab my 1-inch ruler, make a mark there, and then 2 3/4 in. Which is basically in half, I'm pretty sure. Or just about. Okay, it's not half, but it's just about. And that is so your webbing lines up with that, not directly in the center. All right, so you can either just fold down that line or you can use some double-sided tape. And we're gonna fold down the top line to meet the 1-inch line. Connor. Okay. And then we'll measure 2 inches up and place our webbing there. And I am gonna grab my lighter again. Make sure you are preventing the fraying of the webbing by using that lighter. Give it a chance to cool off before you touch it or anything. But you want to make sure it's nice and sealed within that seam so that it doesn't fray over time. I'll grab another piece of double-sided tape, because why not? And this is going to lay in line with that 2 3/4 and then on top of that 2-inch mark. So I've got it in line with the 2 3/4 and then on top of the 2-inch mark. And then we're gonna fold this in half and do 2 lines of stitching to secure all of that in place. So I'll go along one and just batch sew these together. I'm not doing a lot of heavy back stitching over that webbing because the excessive back stitching can actually cause it to fray quicker. So if you do any Just do 1 or 2 little sections. Don't do the whole thing. If you want to, you can even do like a 3rd line of stitching or something like that, but the excessive back stitching can actually kind of perforate the webbing, in my experience. All right, so now that that is done, we're just gonna cut at an angle along the unsewn side. And then these are the connectors. These will go in opposite directions on the bottom panel, so keep in mind before you cut if you have a preference on that kind of thing. But now it's time for us to move on to the front panel of the bag. I'm so excited. We can set all of our handle pieces aside for now. I'm so sorry, I needed a little break from the above view. So on the front top lining piece, this is a rectangle, so the shortest is the top and the longest are your side edges because it gets like folded up. We're gonna mark out an 8.5 by 1/2 inch box that is 1 inch from the top and centered. So I just measured 4 1/4, 4 1/4, or you can use her method of 3/4 in from each side. I'm just gonna double check that I'm 3/4 in from each side. I was a little long on one edge. There we go. Okay. And now we're going to place that on the front top panel. You should have a box cut out of your interfacing for this. I did not do that, so that's my bad. But I'm gonna lay that down, and I believe this piece goes 1.5 inches, no, 3 inches down for the large size. So this gets placed 3 inches down, centered along the front top panel. And we can clip this into place. For the large, the front top lining should be placed 3 inches down from the top edge. All right. And now we're going to sew around the box here. So we're going to cut that open, turn it through and press. And you want to cut right next to, but not through, your stitching along that V shape. So now I'll turn this through, and I'm going to use my iron to press so that everything sits nicely. Okay. Okay, that is nicely pressed. So we're gonna work on the zipper flap piece. And that gets folded right sides together. Well, I'm gonna actually tape the edges in. Use the double-sided tape. I just don't think I could sew that nicely with vinyl. So I'm just using 1/4 inch wide double-sided tape, folding the short raw edges in, and then we'll fold it in half. You could also make sure that it's like exactly the same size as your opening this way, which I'm not mad about. And then I can lay my stabilizer into place. Ah, I should have done that first, but I can top stitch it so you won't see it. So we're gonna sew around all 4 sides. There's that, and I actually really like the way it feels with that little piece of interfacing inside but not adhered. Like, it doesn't give it the same kind of rigidity because that glue hasn't been activated, but it does give it just a little something something. So now we're gonna grab one of our 11-inch zippers. Perfect. Really quick, just prevent those ends from fraying. We're gonna grab double-sided tape and apply that to the bottom. We're gonna center this flap over the top center of this zipper. And sew those into place. And then add double-sided tape over that. And we're going to place this in the window, top stitch it down. So you want to slide the flap through, and also make sure that you're centering your zipper teeth. and make sure that your flap is centered as well. That seems good. Teeth look well placed. So I haven't untaped the bottom half of the zipper yet, but I'm going to do that now. Just make sure that you're laying everything flat. Okay. So we're gonna start at the top and work our way around. So I'm gonna start in a fairly inconspicuous place. And you're just sewing 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, sewing through your overlay piece and your zipper tape, making sure that your lining piece is laying flat. And then we're gonna sew next to, but not through, the flap piece along the side. And then you're gonna lift your flap up and out of the way to top stitch just the lining, exterior, and zipper tape along the bottom edge. And now before we get to pivoting around the corner, I'm gonna push my zipper pull back in. Make sure that my teeth are laying straight. So I'm zipping it back up, holding my zipper teeth and pulling my zipper out of the way, laying my flap back down, but not sewing through it, sewing along the side and then pivoting back up to the top to finish sewing along the top. And then I'm going back to that inconspicuous place and I'll pull my threads through to the back. And just double check that you've caught your zipper tape all the way around. Make sure that you can't see any of your basting stitches for that flap as well. I like it. And then what we're gonna do is pull the bottom of that pocket up to meet the top raw edge. So we're closing off that pocket. So we're gonna start at the bottom edge. We're gonna fold all of our exterior out of the way. Start at the bottom edge because that's finished off. We don't need to sew it. And just do like 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure you're sewing over all of your lining fabrics and your zipper. Move the top of your front out of the way. And then you can trim off any excess zipper tape that you would like, etc. But that's it for this little pocket with a flap. Okay, so now that we've got the front piece out of the way, we're gonna work on the front bottom zipper pieces. So we're gonna fold our zipper tabs in half and half. These shouldn't be interfaced. And if they are, just make sure you're using a really lightweight interfacing. We're gonna grab one of our 11-inch zipper pieces. That's my inner zipper pocket, top zipper. Who are you? You're a little bit smaller, so you're not it. Here it is. Just gonna take a lighter to the ends so that it doesn't fray. And if your zipper teeth are a little uneven, make sure to adjust that now because it won't get any better. And I'm just gonna lift my clip open a little and slide the raw end of my zipper inside. You could absolutely use double-sided tape for this if you wanted. You really want to make sure that they're attached as securely and tight as possible. That will prevent fraying and keep the zipper the actual size you need it to be. So we're going to top stitch through all of that. And then we'll trim off any excess fabric. Do not cut through your zipper. Okay, so there is that. So on the right side of our front bottom pocket with this top, the top edge should have 1 inch free of interfacing. So 7/8 here. And I'm just gonna do a really gentle dotting, like nothing major. I don't want a big long line. And honestly, it seems like it'd be a pretty natural feel with that interfacing. So I don't know if this is super necessary. But we're gonna center our zipper to the top edge of that, which will kind of overlay on that line we just made. I am gonna use double-sided tape because I don't want this to shift. You can just use a little piece. Fold this in half. Make sure that your zipper pull is to the right. Lay that in place, lining up the top raw edge. And then we're gonna grab one of our lining pieces. And the lining piece should be considerably shorter. So no worries if you're like, wait a minute, it's shorter. It's okay. We're gonna sew all the way across the top using like a 3/8 inch, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Feel through the other side. Make sure that you're close to your teeth but not sewing through them. And then I'm getting close to that zipper pull, so I'm going to lift up my fabrics, pull that out of the way, but then you want to make sure that you readjust those layers. All right, and then we're gonna flip this lining up, keeping our zipper face down, and we're gonna top stitch through those layers on the lining. So all of your pieces are flat, but you're sewing through your zipper teeth. Not through your zipper teeth. Sewing through the zipper tape and your lining, making sure the seam allowance is pointing towards the right. so we're gonna press that down. So that they're wrong sides together. And then we're gonna grab our front bottom lining, place that right side up, and place this on top, making sure that the side edges line up and that top edge lines up. We'll base that in place. And this is so that the lining sides are right sides together. All right. And then we're gonna grab our front top panel, place the bottom edge of the completed front top panel to the top edge of the zipper right sides together. So you wanna make sure that your exteriors are right sides together. This is the top of the front panel and this is the bottom. So we're gonna clip those together, lining up the side edges so that they're even. We're gonna sew through those layers. I need to move my zipper pull out of the way because it's right where I'm starting and that's not gonna get very far. Okay, I'm getting close to my zipper pull. I'm gonna leave the needle in, zip it out of the way, and then carry on the stitch line. And so when I pull these apart, this is what it should look like. This is the bottom of my pocket. Here's my zipper. Here's the bottom half. Okay. And then I'm pretty sure we're gonna be pulling all of the other layers away and making sure our zipper seam allowance is pointing towards the right. So here is my top face that way, bottom also facing that way. My other lining panel, it's already top stitched. And then this one we want to top stitch. This is keeping the lining out of the way of the zipper. And then we're going to top stitch our line here. And again, it's a pretty natural line to top stitch because of that interfacing. You want to make sure that everything else is folded out of the way. You don't want to be sewing through a lining panel or anything. It's just the exterior piece. I'm trying to figure out which way is best. I think I'm gonna do it this way. You're gonna be top stitching about 1/8 of an inch from that edge. And this is creating like a little hidden pocket. It's really cute. you can see that that's kind of what it creates. Match up the seams where the front bottom linings are attached. So these should meet together. And then the finished front panel should be about 17 inches tall. And based along the side to make sure the lining sits in place. Trim those extra threads. But you can see how that creates a zipper pocket that kind of like sits on itself. And that is actually a super fun technique that you can use for any kind of bag. So make sure that your zipper pull is centered along that panel for now. And I want to make sure that I add a nameplate to the front of my bag, and I want to do it on this bottom piece. Luckily, there's plenty of room along the bottom. It's not basted together, so I can easily do that. I'm just gonna go I'm gonna go 4 inches up from the bottom edge. I'm using antique gold hardware. And the way I do this is I make sure my prongs are folded nice and straight. 6.5 is the center. So I'm gonna line up my nameplate centered, and then I'm gonna mark out on the vinyl where those prongs are located. I feel like it's going to be different for every nameplate, so there's really no way of creating like a template for this that'll make it easier, at least that I know of. And I want to make sure I'm only cutting through my exterior fabric. Insert the nameplate and then attach your washer to the back side. Very nice. So that is our finished front panel. And now we get to add our handle. The following steps are for the large backpack. Perfect. It is now time to add our grab handle to the front panel along with the overlay. So we're going to measure 2 inches down from the top, making sure it's kind of centered with that front piece. All right, a 2-inch line. And then a 1 1/4 inch line from there. And it does get pretty close to your overlay. Just keep that in mind. Okay, and then 6.5 is the center. And we want to measure 2 inches from either side of that. So I'm gonna grab my handle. Oops. I'm gonna lay some double-sided tape down. And then you can decide if you want it print up, solid up, and then the print is just on the inside of those. It's totally up to you. I think I will do this print up. And these will get placed 1/2 inch from that bottom marked out line. And it gets placed next to the 2-inch, dang it. I'm like so good at this, you don't even know. All right, 1/2 inch up from that marked line. And this is so when you are top stitching the overlay piece on, it's not like butted up right against it. And then it says to do a box stitch. I am pretty confident in my secure stitches. So I'm just gonna do 2 parallel lines to save time. You're not gonna see it. And like I said, I'm pretty confident in the security of my machine's stitches. So now we're gonna grab our overlay pieces. We're gonna add double-sided tape to the middle or along either side and then fold into the middle. I think I'm gonna do that. And I'll go ahead and do this for the back overlay piece while I've got the tape in my hand. It's like, why not? And just set that aside. The back panel I think is gonna go super quick. And in reality, like, this bag has a lot going on. So altogether it takes a long time, but all of the steps individually are pretty quick. So I know I said in the cutting video, just take it one little bite at a time and it shouldn't be too bad. All right, so our overlay piece should fit in between the marked lines we did. I'm gonna grab a double-sided tape again so that I can lay that in place. And this would be a really fun place to add either like a woven label, or if you want to add like a hang tag for your keys, something like that. This could be a really fun place to add that, like underneath that overlay or even on the back panel. And then if you wanted to add a second row of stitching, you can. And if you have rivets you want to add, you could add them in place there. But there is the totally completed front panel. Okay, so I have already fused my foam to my back panel. So I think what I'm gonna do is attach a zippered pocket to the trolley sleeve that I cut out. I cut that out of vinyl. So this was supposed to be my zippered pocket piece, and this is my trolley sleeve. So it's not a very large trolley sleeve, which totally fine. Just like, is that what I want to do? It's going to be a pretty small pocket, so maybe we'll just skip it. We'll just skip the back pocket. For the trolley sleeve though, you just put right sides together, and we're going to sew along the top edge using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Pull this through, and then we'll top stitch along the top and the bottom. If you are using cotton fabric, you can iron it. If you're using a vinyl for this, just kind of roll that seam in between your fingers. I think the vinyl for this is going to look really nice. It'll add some contrast to the back panel since I used the cotton woven, and it's going to not stretch out over time like a cotton would. However, you do interface the cotton, so I guess. Oh. Bobbin's running low. So before I top stitch that, oh, no, it's not too bad, but I've already pulled that away. So I'm just gonna set that aside. I don't wanna risk it. I would have made it through, but then that would have been it. All right, so this is gonna be the top edge. And then I will set this aside while we attach the handles. So all of that is over here. I've got my overlay piece and my grab handle. And then I need to decide which, that is the top. So we'll measure just like on the exterior, 2 inches down. Just like on the front exterior, I should say, because this is still the exterior. This is my center of 6.5. So I'm gonna measure 2 inches out and 2 inches out. Then I'm going to come 1 1/4 inch down. Measure that line. And I'll lay my double-sided tape next to the 2 inches, not inside of it. Oh, okay, and then the double-sided straps get laid over top of that. So that's cool. Not double-sided, the padded straps. and then 1/2 inch up from the bottom. So I'll go ahead and baste these down. So for the back straps, you want the wrong side to be facing up, and they're gonna angle out like this. So I'm gonna cut this angled, and it's a real gentle angle. You don't need it insanely angled, ensangled. And that's gonna get placed like 3/8 inches from the bottom. Why am I trying to peel the tape off of the roll? I always find double-sided tape is easier to get off of vinyl versus fabric. So these are going to be set 1 1/4 inch in from the center. So here's my 1 1/4, I'm setting it down, and then 3/8 inch up from that bottom line. I'm gonna go ahead and baste one in place, and then I'll do the other. I've got the other side trimmed at the angle, taped in place, and I'll baste that down as well. 1 1/4 from the center. And then we can add our overlay. Mine are not even because I trimmed this one wrong and had to trim it again. So I made sure that where the straps sit is even, and you won't see it underneath here. So it's just gonna be our little secret. Don't tell anybody, okay? The back zipper pocket would have been done very similarly to the front. We just wouldn't have needed to include that little flap piece. Okay, so this can be laid over top and centered. All of that. And then just double check that when you flip this down, you can see the correct side of your back strap, and you can see it kind of angles up and then down. All right, so here's where it's gonna get kind of bulky as we're sewing through lots of layers. And I'm gonna add a second row of stitching to the back panel under the straps just to help reinforce. If you did the box stitches, that's not something you really need to do. Oh, I'm caught on something. There we go. All right, so then this gets placed 5.5 inches up from the bottom. Ooh, this would be a fun place to add a little label too. And then we have our side strap anchors that are going to get placed 3/4 up of an inch from the bottom. And they get placed at an angle, well, straight, but make sure the angle is up. Your webbing is at the top of that triangle. And then I'll baste down the side. This next part is super easy with these ladder lock buckles. It just goes around the back above that next bar, over it and through it. And you can see it kind of grips and holds it all in place. And you can see under here it also has that little bit of texture that helps grip to keep your webbing in place. It's crazy. And then this gets folded under 1/2 inch. I'm gonna do a double fold because I don't want that to fray over time. I want a nice clean edge. And then to adjust it, you just push the fabric there. We are now working on the side panels of the bag. I'm really sorry for switching the camera angle. I can't do above the head anymore. It's disorienting me and I'm not able to focus as well on what I'm doing. And sewing is my fun time, so I want this to be fun. So I'm top stitching along the longest top edge of the pocket. My pattern piece was printed wrong, so my side pockets are a little bit small, but that's okay. They'll still work. I'll just need to kind of play with the seam allowances a little bit and they won't be as wide. So right now I'm rolling that seam in between my fingers and top stitching. I've got my side panels face up on my cutting or on my sewing table here, in the direction I want them to be. Since my print isn't exactly directional, but it looks best a certain way, I kind of want to make sure it's consistent. Using vinyl, if you can, on these side panels is going to give you the most structure, I believe, but it might make it kind of difficult to sew in the end. We'll see. I'm doing cotton, so guess it doesn't matter for me. So your bottom edges should line up pretty perfectly. Mine is like 1/4 of an inch too small, so like 1/8 of an inch on either end. Not that big of a deal, but you'll see these pockets aren't really going to have much of a 3D effect. So I'm bringing in the edge to meet the edge of the fabric. Since this pocket is kind of diagonal, it gives it that 3D effect. So you can see we're bringing that edge together. Too bad as far as not being 3D enough, so that's good. So there is our side pocket panel, and we're going to skip to step 15 since we're using a webbing. So we're going to mark a 3-inch line in. Oh my gosh, Connor. Hi, how's it going? Three-inch line and cut there. So 1, 2, 3. Just gonna cut it now. And I really like that she has you keep these pieces together until you get to where you need to sew it, so that there aren't as many just random pieces sitting around waiting for you to do something with it. So now we can grab all 4 of our D-rings. And this creates this side panel that can be like cinched in. It's really cute. So both D-rings are gonna go on to one piece. We'll just fold that in half, basting it down. And these are going on that 3-inch piece. So clip in place and baste it down. And it doesn't show that I need to finish off an edge of this, so I guess I won't. And this needs to go 2 3/4 of an inch down. I'm not seeing anything that says it should be different for the large versus the small. So I'm going to mark that. Okay, 2 3/4. And you want to keep it consistent with each side where you're placing these items. That way they mirror each other. So don't try to be cute and do it on one side versus the other. Oh wait, maybe you do mirror it. All right, never mind. And then whatever you do on one side, you're gonna do opposite on the other. You're gonna mirror it. And this is going to be placed under the 2 3/4 mark, not above. Yeah. Under. And then they go through both D-rings and then under one, over and in one. And this creates this like locking mechanism. So through both D-rings, over one D-ring, under the remaining D-ring. And this is a step you want to complete so that they're out of the way of our seam allowances, etc. Okay, So now we're gonna work on the exterior base. I'm gonna set these in my pile of completed exterior pieces. So here is the base. This pattern does not call for purse feet, but you could absolutely add them if you wanted. So we're gonna mark 3/4 of an inch in from all sides. You want to use something that will erase. This board came up. All right, and we're gonna sew all the way around that. And this is going to baste all of those pieces together. Well, stay stitched more or less. Tempted to do like diagonals. I think that would look really cool, but I don't feel like it. So that secured our foam. We've got a nice stable base, and we can now set that aside and work on the lining. Oof. So I'm gonna kind of keep myself organized, clipping my lining side panels together. I'm not gonna be doing anything with these just yet. So I want to keep those with my other lining panels. This is my bottom panel. I'm going to clip that with my exterior bottom panel just so it stays together. And then we can work on our inner slip pocket and other pieces. So we're going to start with the slip pocket. I'm going to grab one of my lining main panels, and then I've got this accent lining piece. I know I clipped it together. This is my bottle sleeve, zippered pocket, my other main panel, empty hardware, foam for the laptop sleeve. Oh, I was looking for the piece and it was clipped together. Cool. Where's my other, oh, it's in there. Okay, great. So the inner slip pocket is supposed to be 13 inches wide. So when you fold it in half, it should be 13. We got it. Let me turn my iron on. We're just gonna baste that together, right side out. And then we're gonna be adding the slip pocket trim. Can mark a 1/2 inch line. So that we know where the center is. And then I'm gonna use double-sided tape along either edge. And you can absolutely do this to any pattern. This is just a super quick way to make a fancier looking slip pocket. So I'm gonna peel off my bottom layer of double-sided tape. and lay the top raw edge of this piece there. There will be some overhang. This just gives you a nice place to start sewing that you'll trim off. And then we'll fold this over top. And you should kind of feel those edges line up. And then we will top stitch that on. Ooh, this would be a great place to add a woven label as well. So I'll put one on here that says you look really pretty today. And we are adding a center divider line. So I'm gonna put this kind of over to the side, just a little. And then just check along the back side that you caught all layers of the vinyl. And then trim off that little bit of excess. Oh. And then it says for the large backpack, we're gonna be adding this slip pocket to the same side that we have our zippered pocket. So we will move ahead and start on the zippered pocket. This is a pocket with an overlay. So it's super easy. It's a little daunting at first, but it's not bad. We just wanna make sure that we've got our centers marked out. And I'm gonna lay some double-sided tape along the overlay. Double-sided tape is definitely gonna be your friend for this kind of pocket. I wouldn't recommend trying it without. So I'm laying the double-sided tape along the outermost edges. And then I think we're pretty much gonna place this like 3 inches down from the top edge centered. She shows marking out the box first, but I don't think that's super necessary. So I'll measure 3 inches down from the top edge, and then we're gonna center that into place. So now that that's taped in place, we're going to sew around the exterior. This is another really great place to add a woven label under that overlay. If you'd like. And then we're gonna trim away the excess lining underneath that piece. So I'm just very carefully taking my seam ripper to make an opening. And then I'm gonna take a pair of scissors that aren't too good so that I know I'm not cutting through anything I shouldn't be. Because if they're too sharp, you might get ahead of yourself. And then we'll grab our inner zipper. We're going to sew our lining fabric to it with the right sides touching the back of the zipper. So right side up, zipper face up. I'm just gonna do a quick line of stitching, and this ensures that our zipper lining is attached even if we can't catch it when we attach the zipper to the overlay. And it is the lining fabric. You still want to catch your zipper. This is a little bit tricky to do with super thick or super sturdy waterproof canvas, I should say. It's better done with the water resistant canvas or a printed lightweight waterproof canvas. Make sure your lining pieces are even along the sides. And then we're gonna press this open, folding the edge down of our lining fabric. So I'll go ahead and iron this. All right, so you wanna iron it so that you've got a nice flat seam. And now we're gonna grab, again, that double-sided tape, and we're gonna place this around where our stitch line is. Oh, I'm so glad my air conditioning finally turned off. So sorry, I know that's so noisy, but like it gets hot. I can't help it. Also, stop apologizing, Lauren, nobody cares. And then you're gonna lay this over top of your zipper, pressing down to secure the tape and just making sure that everything looks nice and even. So we should have our zipper pocket open on either end, and I'm gonna start over here. Again, you also want to make sure that your lining fabrics are nicely centered with the zipper pocket placard, accent, overlay, whatever you want to call it. And there are other methods of doing this, but they require you to like stop sewing in one direction, start sewing in another direction, tie to the back, etc. Just really time consuming for a zipper pocket. Okay, so I'm stopping my needle in right before I would close off the zipper pocket, and I'm pushing my zipper pull back in. Depending on the size of your zipper pull, you might need to leave a little bit more of an opening than that. Okay. And now we can fold this other lining piece down. Your zipper pocket might be uneven, That's okay. We're just gonna trim off any excess so that they're even. And this gets left open to turn the bottom of the bag through. So what I'm gonna do is fold up both layers so that I'm sewing through 4 pieces of fabric, back stitch, and then just sew around. Well, I guess I'm sewing 2 lines. I don't need to sew around, it's already sealed at the top. And then fold this up to match. And then we can trim the excess there. And that is our completed zippered pocket. I'm gonna fold it up and out of the way so that we can attach our slip pocket and add our sectioned lines. I'm gonna fold the slip pocket in half, create a center line. And it gets placed 1.5 inches up from the bottom. Centered. And you can choose to not make this a slip pocket if you don't want it to be. You could also cut this a little bit wider and do that cargo slip pocket method. I definitely prefer the cargo slip pocket. I just didn't think about it for this bag. All right. So I'm gonna sew down the side. Sew across the bottom until I get to my center. I'm gonna come up the center. Leave my needle in. I'm going to do 1 stitch front and back a few times to kind of tack it into place, and then come back down about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch away from my previous stitch line. And then create a nice sectioned slip pocket without multiple lines of stitching, without having to backstitch a bunch. Just really easy, nice and secure. If you want, you can also add a rivet to that piece. We can then fold the pocket back down, unzip it all the way or halfway, whichever works for you, and then we can set this piece aside. We're gonna work on the laptop sleeve and the bottle sleeve. So for the laptop sleeve, again, if you're using the water resistant, make sure you mark out which is the back side. It should be 13 inches wide. The top edge and the bottom edge. And it should be 13 inches wide. So you're sewing across the 14-inch section. No. No, you're sewing across the 13-inch section. So that it's 14 tall. Turn the laptop sleeve right side out and insert the foam. So this is just super quick. Again, this is a skill you can use in any bag, really. I'm gonna go ahead and take this over to the ironing board and press it. So your foam is 13 by 12. You wanna make sure that you are inserting it in so that it's 13 inches tall and 12 inches wide. So you don't have the foam within your seam allowance. We're gonna lay it flat. Make sure it's centered. And then you might need to kind of futz with that seam a little bit so that it lays flat. Either put it over top of the seam or under the seam. I'm just gonna clip this in place for now so I can feel that it's pretty well centered. And then again, making sure that it's either above or below that seam. Yeah. And I think I'm gonna add a sew on label to this piece. I think that would look really cool. And I think I have like a bright gold that might look cool. Maybe I've used it. That green will look nice. Oh wait, no, there it is, bright yellow. The bright yellow isn't, oh, there's that gold. I'm fine, this is fine. Like, I feel like it'll tie into the exterior without looking strange. And these are from the Heartwood and Hide. I'm gonna place this like 2 inches from the top, centered. Yeah. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna top stitch the foam in place. And then we will move on. All right, now we're working on the bottle sleeve. It should be folded so that it's 10 inches wide. And then we're just gonna sew along the raw edge. Yes. The long raw edge. Oh, I thought I ran out of bottle. Turn it through, press, and then top stitch along the top and the bottom. I could tell my thread was too short. And now I'm probably gonna run out of bobbin. we'll grab our side panel. One of the side panels. We're gonna measure 1.5 inches up from the bottom edge. And lay one of the long raw edges to it. And then I think that gets folded on itself to create a sleeve, or maybe, okay, no, it loops up. Yeah, so it's a larger slip pocket. I thought it was just a little thing. No. Cool, good. I was gonna say, that's not gonna hold a very big water bottle. But I have seen people make sunglass sleeves that are kind of similar to this, except they fold it in half on itself. So if you know you carry multiple water bottles, you can add a second one of these to your bag if you wanted to. Definitely recommend a waterproof fabric for this at least, because a lot of times bottles can sweat. So now I'm going to baste the laptop sleeve into place. Measure 1.5 inches up from the bottom edge. Well, that's going to be satisfying. It'll match the bottle sleeve. I'm so excited. My pieces of fabric in the bin have nearly depleted. That's always a good sign. We are not sewing across the bottom. It's going to slide in and be able to move freely across the bottom. So there is our padded laptop sleeve, and here is our bottle sleeve. Both are open along the bottom edges and the top. We are finally ready to assemble this backpack. I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to take a drink of water. Look at what you've done. You've done so much. I've done so much. Honestly, I'm just saying this to myself because this has been a long bag, but I'm so excited to see the final result. Right now, I need all of my side panels. I've got them all so that it's facing me. The top is facing me. I'm gonna grab my 1-inch ruler and just mark 1 inch along the top edge of all of these. If you have made the Valora bag or the Louise barrel bag, I think from Swoon, you will know this method. It's a really cool method of creating like a bag that has different heights for the main panel and the side panel. So we're gonna move that out of the way. I'm gonna grab my double-sided tape. I'm not going to use the 1/2 inch wide for this. I want something that isn't quite as thick. Something that's a little more gentle hold. And again, this should be at the top of all of your side panels. Step 9 is where we are at the moment. So we're gonna fold that down to meet the 1-inch line. Again, this is the top edge. So there are my exteriors. And then we'll move on to the lining. And your side panels are a different height than your exterior front and back panels. I was lining mine up just to keep it out of the way, and I freaked out for a minute, and then I was like, oh wait, that's right. We're good. We're good. So I'm gonna clip this together again, lining up the bottom, just to keep this out of the way. That's my lining. We're gonna grab the exterior front panel. Hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in so long. Double check that my height is 17. Oh yeah, we're good. I'm gonna clip this right sides together. And then we want to stop sewing at that 1/2 inch mark along the bottom. And this is a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So we're basically sewing next to, but not through, our stabilizer pieces. I'm going to backstitch just a little bit over the top of my pocket. And then again, as we get to the bottom, we're going to backstitch and stop sewing at that 1/2 inch mark, because that's when we will add our base panel. So we're going to repeat that on the other side. Make sure that you've got the bottoms lined up with the bottom, the top with the top, etc. That 1/2 inch mark and a 1/2 inch seam allowance. When did you run out? Oh my gosh, so long ago. Gosh darn it. And just double check that you've caught all of your seams. trying to see if that, so that front panel should line up pretty well with your front pocket. So that's something to consider as well. Doesn't look like mine are, but that is okay. It will be okay, I should say. You could pick it out if you needed to. Just looks like things got a little uneven. I'm not sure why. And when I say a little uneven, I mean like glaringly, obviously uneven. What did I do? Okay, I see. I'm gonna pick off this side panel and just double check that things are the size they should be. So now we can attach the back panel. Lining up the bottom edge. And then just take a look before you sew, make sure bottoms and tops are correctly aligned. If you're starting at the bottom, make sure you come up about 1/2 inch. And then make sure you're feeling through that side seam so that you're not sewing through anything you shouldn't be sewing through. And then it has you add a second line of stitching to reinforce the connectors. Which I think is genius. And then we'll repeat that on the other side. And take a look, we've reinforced down here. Bag looks gorgeous, and oh my goodness, it is huge. I'm just excited it's all finally coming together. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top for this side. Reinforce that connector. And now we're ready to attach the bottom. And then we'll just repeat all those steps for the interior. So make sure that you are looking at the bottom of your bag. We're going to start on one of the long sides. And if you've ever made like the Trailblazer backpack, or I think the Snowdrop Satchel, there's all different kinds of bags that use this method of like adding a square bottom. And so what you do is you start 1/2 inch from the inner edge, 1/2 inch down, and you're sewing right next to but not through your stabilizer. And then secure those stitches. And then we'll repeat that with the other side, and then we'll sew the side, the short sides. so far I haven't really encountered any issues with my materials that I would do differently in the future. Especially if you have a domestic machine, this bag is definitely doable so far. And as with most bags on a domestic machine, you just want to make sure that you're using the right materials to be able to accomplish what you're trying to set out to do. All right, so we're squaring those edges. So what we do is we line up that short side and pinch down. And then we're just going to make it so those stitches meet up. So right here, you just kind of pinch those panels together. Pinch, squeeze, whatever you're into. And then we're going to trim the corners at the base so that there isn't as much bulk. And then it says, do not trim the seam allowances of the area where the connector triangles are. Lay seams flat by using double-sided tape here. So I'll go ahead and grab this double-sided tape here. I'm gonna lay it on the raw edge like that and fold it over to wrap around the stabilizer essentially. And you don't need a lot of double-sided tape here. So we'll repeat that on all 4 corners. And then we'll repeat this on the lining fabrics. But we're not going to attach the base of our bag yet. That gets done at the very end. Right now I'm thinking I'd probably charge like $260 for this large size backpack. It took about an hour and a half to cut out, and I've been sewing this for probably a good 3 hours. So I usually like to charge $60 an hour for sewing, and that includes my cutting and interfacing time. So I usually like just say, okay, this took me 5 hours to sew, so that would be 60 times 5, that's 300. I don't include the time it took me to cut an interface. And I guess you could include it, but then maybe charge $30 an hour. I don't know. It's really up to you what you're comfortable charging. A few years ago, when I had first started sewing, it's really hard to charge when you first start making bags because things are going to take you longer and you're not as good at them. So when you first start sewing, you can't take 9 hours to make a bag that isn't really that well made, I guess, that's skillfully made. This is not true in every case, of course, but you can't charge, I mean, I guess you could. You can charge whatever you want. Anyway. I guess what I'm saying is good luck trying to figure out what to charge, because I still struggle too. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So look at the structure so far. Really nice, but also, holy cow, massive. All right, let's go ahead and repeat all of that with our lining now. Bottom panel, I'm just gonna set out of the way for now, but I am going to attach it to one side of the lining before I move on. Make sure that your top panels are lined up with the top edge of your bag. Please remember that these side panels are shorter than the top, or the side panels are shorter than the main. And then stop at that 1/2 inch. I think it might even be 3/4 of an inch, yeah, for the lining reasons. I'm gonna apply my double-sided tape right now to this seam. It should actually be a pretty long piece for the top and then a shorter piece for the side. Now I'm going to attach the other side. Ooh, look at that. So nice looking. Oh my gosh. Just double checking top, bottoms. Yes. I'm really sad now. I wish I'd added a second bottle sleeve just so that the lining fabric all had something on each panel. Not that it matters. right, so there is my double-sided tape attached to all of those pieces. And then we're gonna work on our main zipper. Oh, sorry. And this bag is somewhat a drop-in lining, somewhat not. It can definitely be made as a drop-in. It would just be a little bit trickier to add that top zipper. A big thank you to Alex, who links all the items I mention in the videos. This one is very long, so you are incredible. Make sure you link your YouTube channel. And if you're watching this, make sure you go subscribe. Thank you. Thank you very much. I can already tell some of these are gonna come undone. So if you want to add a little clip while it's just sitting there. All right, so now I'm gonna grab my lining bottom and I'm just gonna attach it to one side, and it's pretty much gonna be the side without the open zipper pocket, but I don't know that it really matters. But I just want this to be in place. I don't want to misplace it, and it's not going to hurt to have it in place. And for the lining bottom, it's a 3/4 inch seam allowance so that it's not loose or baggy. This is going to be pushed right side out, yeah. For now. I'll just set this aside. All right, we're gonna grab our exterior and we're gonna mark 3/4 of an inch and 3/8 of an inch. So make a mark on the top edge of the back panel, 3/4 inch from the folded left side edge. And then 3/8 from the other. And then flip it and kind of repeat mirroring your marks. So 3/8 and then 3/4. And then we're gonna start Pin clip the main zipper to the top edge of the front panel. So it starts closer. The 3/8 inch is where your zipper starts, and the 3/4 is where it's gonna end. And I'm just adding double-sided tape to help me hold that in place while I'm basting it down. So I'm going to add a piece of double-sided tape to both edges. The foam is so squeaky. All right, and this gets placed face down. And then baste that down. Okay, we're gonna try this way. It's just hard for me to get in there. All right, so I'm gonna baste this into place. The double-sided tape helps it stay while you're sewing, but you really don't want it to shift when you're adding the lining. And we're gonna trail off the end of the zipper. So you just kind of hold it away and at an angle. Oh, look at that. Thank you, Bobbin. Got a good one this time. All right, and I have a full bobbin here, so we should be good to be able to finish off the bag, because all that's left is to add the zipper to the other side, add our lining, and then finish sewing the bottom of the bag and then top stitch. Sounds like a lot, but it's not. Except I have another one of these cut out. I would like to make it today, but I'm tired. All right, so I'm peeling away the tape, bringing this end of the zipper to meet. And now that I've got one end of my zipper secure and lined up, I can unzip as I'm clipping, or taping into place, I should say. And you can either use zipper end hardware or the little zipper end included in the pattern. The zipper end hardware is going to add quite a bit of weight to the zipper tape, so I may actually cut out that little cute zipper overlay. Zipper end, I should say. Because the added weight is going to make the bag sit a little bit differently. All right, so now we're going to put our lining in. And whichever you want to be the front versus the back, decide now. I'm going to put it so that my laptop sleeve is facing the back. So I feel like it could sit a little funny if it's facing the front. You might meet some resistance at those side pockets when you're trying to push everything inside the bag. And now what we're going to do is line up the front panels here. just along the top edge. And I am just gonna sew one side at a time. Make sure you've got your zipper tail moved out of the way. Clip that together. Use double-sided tape if you want to hold that down. Making sure the sides are folded in and that you're sewing down a little ways from your basting stitch, but not too close to the zipper teeth. If you're too close to the zipper teeth, you're gonna have trouble opening and closing the bag. So yeah, we don't want that. And then I'm gonna stop like 1/8 of an inch from the outer edge and backstitch. Trim away all the extras. And now we'll clip the other side. And it's not really worth trying to line up the side panels just yet because we still need to flip the bag. But if you want, you can clip down here for a little extra hold that's out of the way. And again, we should have right sides together. Your lining is inside the exterior. All right, so unclip any side panels, etc. I really don't want my zipper pull to come off. I am gonna add my zipper end hardware. I really like zipper end hardware. So we're gonna pull everything through the lining. So big. So I'm gonna start by grabbing the bottom of the bag and pulling that through. This is definitely not a bag you want to sew the bottom closed and then just turn it through the zipper pocket or anything like that. You're gonna want to leave the bottom open. Push. Press along all of your seams, especially the bottom of your bag. Make sure you caught everything. There's no holes. Pretty good. And then we're gonna open up that zippered pocket. Double check along your zipper that everything is nicely placed. I'm gonna open my zipper pocket. Pull my zipper pocket lining And then grab the bottom of the bag and turn that back through. This is why you definitely don't want to use too thick of a waterproof canvas or too much interfacing, so that you don't have trouble with this part. Or I should say more trouble than is necessary for this part. Okay, so I've already got one side attached, which is to my benefit, and then we're gonna attach the other long side, and then we'll just do that same folding method for the side panels. So I'm lining up that side edge just so I can get a good place to start. And it's a 3/4 inch seam allowance. The side of the bag. We're going to meet up our stitching and finish that off on the side. And then trim down the seam allowances at an angle. Just be really careful that you're not cutting through anything that you shouldn't be cutting through. Okay, and now we can put that back in through that birthing hole in the lining. Kind of situating that inside the bag, because you want to make sure it all fits nicely before you sew the birthing hole closed. So we're going to fold those raw edges down inside the turning hole. Okay, we can put the zipper pocket lining back in to the zipper pocket, poking those corners down. I like to make sure I zip it so I know it's finished. Okay. And then we're gonna line up these edges, making sure to re-tape those seam allowances open if need be. And these are gonna fold down on each other and line up. So any extra little threads, etc., we're gonna poke in to the bag and line those up. Oh. I stepped on that clip, well, with my machine's foot. Because of the way the exterior is stabilized, again, it really makes it easier to fold these pieces together because it shapes around the stabilizer. Because I didn't use vinyl on the top exterior, I should be able to iron pretty easily so that I get a nice edge around the zipper. You just want to lay those seams open and clip. Okay, and then before I sew this, I'm just going to kind of shape it all together. Making sure the corners poke together. Here's what the inside's looking like. And I'm gonna iron this from the lining side. Okay, this is it. It's the final countdown. All right, I'm gonna start top stitching. I'm gonna start on the back side. I have pressed my lining side so that I know everything is sitting nice and flat. If need be, you can also feel the underside to make sure everything is sitting nicely. Leave your needle in and pivot down. Leave your needle in, pivot across. And make sure that these side panels stay lined up. If need be, you can use double-sided tape. They are a little bit tricky. There we go. Make sure you're only sewing through so many layers. Needle in, pivot, Needle in, pivot. I'm really excited to make the mini size. It's gonna come together so much quicker. And I think it's a really good everyday size versus more of like a travel or diaper bag size like this one is. Needle in, pivot. Make sure all your pieces are lined up. That is it. So now secure your threads. And just kind of reshape. And then I'm gonna add my zipper end piece and show you the finished bag. We did it. It's done, finally. Whoa. This bag is so cool. I love the side pockets. I do wish they were bigger. That is not the pattern's fault. That's me printing the pattern wrong's fault. I love the way the sides cinch in with these. However, I can see that this would fray over time, so maybe add a zipper end, or I might even like fold it over and add a rivet or something. Maybe I'll do that. That could look cool. I'm gonna clip it just to see what that would be like. Because I don't know. I think I might do that. I might try to add a little rivet. These are the back straps. They're so delicious. This is the laptop sleeve. I haven't even put it on, but we'll wait. The inside has that laptop sleeve. Right when you open it. And then it has that water bottle pocket. And, oh, you can't see it, but I can. The slip pockets, the water bottle pocket, that front top zip pocket. And again, those are easier if this is uncinched. So you just kind of loosen it at those D-rings to help get into it. Here is what it will look like uncinched. These sides will kind of poke out like that. So still really cute. I love the way it looks with the vinyl accents and the nylon webbing. The straps are so soft. So it feels really good. It sits pretty high up, which is kind of cool. And then with these locking sliders, you can kind of adjust it as need be and it will stay in place, which is really nice. So there's those side connectors there that help the bag really fit on your back nicely and add structure while still being super domestic friendly. So yeah, this backpack is incredible. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know down below if you did, if you'll be making this backpack or checking out any other patterns from Sandeep. And I will see you guys